Good evening. Welcome to This Week in Turkey. Nationalist Action Party (MHP) leader Devlet Bahçeli announced on Monday that his party will support Recep Tayyip Erdoğan in the 2019 presidential elections.
On Monday, Nationalist Movement Party (MHP) leader Devlet Bahçeli announced his party's decision to support President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan's bid for re-election in the upcoming presidential elections in November 2019. The MHP will not present a candidate for the presidential elections in 2019. Its chairman will not run for the presidency. It will support Recep Tayyip Erdoğan for the presidency in line with our party's loyalty to the unity and togetherness of Turkey, Bahçeli told reporters at a press conference. The MHP will not present a candidate for the presidential elections in 2019. Its chairman will not run for the presidency. It will support Recep Tayyip Erdoğan for the presidency in line with our party's loyalty to the unity and togetherness of Turkey, Bahçeli told reporters at a press conference. He also called for legal amendments to be made in order to allow political parties to form pre-election alliances. Turkey is scheduled to hold simultaneous presidential and parliamentary elections in November 2019, and Bahçeli's MHP has been in close cooperation with the ruling AKP since the July 2016 military coup attempt. Through its votes in the parliament, MHP played a vital role in Erdoğan's plans to shift Turkey's political system from the current parliamentary system to an executive presidency. Following Bahçeli's call for a pre-election alliance between the MHP and the ruling AKP, Erdoğan supported Bahçeli's statements in his party's parliamentary group meeting. I attach great importance to Mr. Bahçeli's statements. On behalf of myself, my party and my people, I want to express my gratitude to him for announcing his support to me. It is obvious that the 2019 elections will be a contest between nationalists and those who are under foreign control, Erdoğan said on Tuesday. President Erdoğan and MHP leader Devlet Bahçeli later held a meeting on Wednesday. I should particularly emphasize Mr. Bahçeli's nationalist stance ahead of the elections, Erdoğan said at the meeting. I should particularly emphasize Mr. Bahçeli's nationalist stance ahead of the elections, Erdoğan said at the meeting, vowing that the spirit of unity formed by the alliance will destroy the plans of those who want to divide Turkey. We will come together with Mr. Bahçeli and will discuss the problems of our country. We hope to walk together into the future, Erdoğan said. After the Erdoğan-Bahçeli meeting, AKP and MHP made a decision to form a parliamentary commission tasked to work on legislative harmonization. With the help of commissions to be formed in the coming period, this issue will be technically worked out, AKP spokesperson Mahir Ünal said on Thursday. Meanwhile, main opposition Republican People's Party CHP spokesperson Bülent Tezcan slammed the MHP's alliance with AKP. There may be some alliances in politics, but there should not be adhesions. The MHP's base does not deserve having its will grafted onto another party. The MHP is a serious party and has had a serious role in Turkey's history, Tezcan said on Wednesday after the CHP's Central Executive Board meeting in Ankara.
Tonight we're joined by Yüksel Taşkın, who is a professor of political science, to talk about AKP's recent effort to form an alliance with the MHP and also the escalating tension between President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan and former President Abdullah Gül. Welcome, Mr. Taşkın, once again to This Week in Turkey. So MHP leader Devlet Bahçeli has pledged his full support, his and his party's full support for President Erdoğan in the upcoming 2019 presidential elections. What's interesting for maybe foreign audiences here is that this alliance has been, or this aspired alliance, so to speak, has been framed as a local and national one. So this portrayal is not really news for Turkish audiences who follow news in Turkish, but for those who don't, can you start by explaining what is meant here? What does local and national really mean?
It is a typical discourse of a right-wing populist approach. What does this mean? They generally tend to create a binary opposition between quote-unquote, silent conservative majority versus a very active minority. In this case, national or nativistic means, true elements, silent conservative majority, whose rights were denied by a very active Westernist minority. Westernist is also identified with unnational who are not that attached to national religious values. It's a typical right-wing populist effort to, let's say, blur real social and economic divides in the name of a binary opposition between we and them. So around this populist discourse, they try to create a nationalist conservative alliance, actually. And their calculation is that in this country, there is about 65% of right-wing votes around nationalist conservative sentiments. So around this populistic rhetoric, they come together for 2019 presidential elections, and they seek for an alliance.
Mm-hmm. And what's your overall evaluation of this alliance? Let's say it's maybe not, it's not yet set in stone, but we can say that it's trying to be officialized currently by Erdoğan, between Bahçeli and Erdoğan. Does this come as a surprise to you at all?
It's not a surprise, but for AKP and Erdoğan, it would be better for them to just wait a bit and to try to see different options. For them, actually, maybe Devlet Bahçeli's move is too early. It is restricting AKP's options because together, Bahçeli's and Erdoğan's today's position is a status quoist position, actually. I call them as the alliance of old Turkey. So Bahçeli actually is a lonely person, lonely player. He needed to exert pressure on AKP and Erdoğan for an early settlement. Why? Because there is going to be a congress, actually General Congress of Nationalist Action Party. Bahçeli wants to enter into that congress with the promise of, securing a partnership in a ruling government or in a ruling coalition. So his card in the Congress will be this, I will make you a part of the state, so you will benefit from this alliance. So to secure this, actually, he acted too early for, I believe, AKP and Erdoğan, because imagine that there is going to be a need to seek for another option. Today, it may be too late for them to switch to another option. Bahçeli is actually trying to secure himself. He is general chairman of a Nationalist Action Party for about 20 years. Except one or two achievements, he is generally a great failure here. So he's not even considering institutional survival of his party, but he's trying to save himself. So only promise that he can give to his, let's say, unwilling followers in the party is the promise of being a partner within the state. So this is why he had to move early, maybe too early. And he also restricted options of AKP. And this bloc showed their card. They made their move. If the elections are going to be realized in November 2019, maybe this act is too early. It may give some room of movement for the opposition groups. If they can act rationally, if they can act in a way that if they can build a working alliance against this can even turn into an advantage for the opposition, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll be back in the studio with you in a bit, Mr. Taşkın. We'll move on with our next news video, and then we'll be back here to continue our conversation. The row between former President Abdullah Gül and President Erdoğan continued this week.
Former President Abdullah Gül's critical tweets on a disputed emergency decree had drawn various reactions from politicians in the last week of December. In the tweets, Gül had criticized the decree, which granted impunity to citizens deemed to have actively taken part in the resistance against the July 2016 coup attempt. The ambiguity that does not comply with the legal phrasing of the decree law numbered 696 is worrisome in regards to the rule of law. I hope it will be revised to avoid developments that could sadden all of us in the future, Gül had said in his tweets. President Erdoğan responded to Gül's criticism by saying, "Shame on you, weren't we sharing the cause? How did you get on Kemal's boat? referring to the main opposition Republican People's Party chair Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. At the end of a week-long quarrel, Gül had stated that he would continue expressing his views. As someone who believes in freedom of thought and expression, which are founding principles of our party, I will continue to express my views in situations I find necessary, Gül had explained. Abdullah Gül was a long-time political ally of President Erdoğan until the end of his term in office. On recent speculations that Gül would run in the 2019 presidential elections, Nationalist Movement Party MHP leader Devlet Bahçeli said on Monday that Gül's recent moves were unexplainable. Abdullah Gül's attempt to run in the presidential elections is not something explainable. It would be better if he avoided these calls and did not rise to debate, Bahçeli said. In his ruling AKP's parliamentary group meeting on Wednesday, President Erdoğan made further comments on his recent row with Gül. Those who were once under our party's roof but have now taken to drifting around outside in a different sort of mood have no right to say anything about our party, Erdoğan said without directly mentioning Gül's name. Those who have fallen from the train will stay where they have fallen, Erdoğan added. Earlier today, Gül told reporters after Friday prayers that he did not want to get into a further argument over the recent polemic that erupted with President Erdoğan. It would not be my place to enter into an argument over these subjects, Gül said. Everything is clear, everybody knows each other. I do not want to enter into an argument with friends, he added. Regarding the cabinet's latest decision to extend the state of emergency for a sixth term, Gül told reporters that he hopes this will be the last extension. Of course, Turkey has experienced an extraordinary period recently. The state of emergency was necessary to bring things under control. But to normalize everything and to show that democracy in Turkey is fully working would be a huge favor for Turkey. It would be a grand hope for everybody, Gül said.
So, Mr. Taşkın, as we've just heard in the news clip, this passive dispute between Gül and President Erdoğan has been going on for some time now. And Gül has stated today that he does not intend to, I quote, get involved in an argument with friends. Is this a retreat, or is Gül asserting himself further? What's your opinion?
I believe, when we entered to 2018, Gül secured the right position for himself. He made clear that he is not happy with current direction of ruling AKP. He also made it clear that he has some criticisms about certain recent, policies taken under the state of emergency regime. But beyond this, he is just, waiting there. So this seemingly passive position, which is not passive, as I try to explain, makes Erdoğan very unhappy because Erdoğan doesn't like uncertainty. So far, Erdoğan was able to, destroy or seduce all his rivals in the Islamist or right camp. But Gül is acting, I believe, some people find him very, very, let's say, cautious, too cautious maybe, but I believe Gül is playing a good chess, actually. He's a good chess player. And his style is a disturbing one for Erdoğan. He wants immediate action on behalf of Gül. He can either destroy Gül's support bases, or he can intimidate him, or Gül can challenge him. So he wants to see the outcome immediately. But I believe just for this reason, Gül will continue his, let's say, general silence, and in some moments he will make his disturbance felt. As today he said, I hope this is the last extension of the state of emergency, policy. For example, this is a sign of disturbance, but he makes a very short and clear points. He's not talking too much, but people who are afraid of the possibility that Gül may run as president, they show that they reveal their fear easily. So here, I believe Gül's current position is quite disturbing for the ruling bloc around Erdoğan, and I believe in the seeming future, Gül will continue like this. Sometimes he will make some, let's say, statements like a true statesman rather than an ordinary politician. And by this way, he will try to protect his image of a neutral person who is carrying the national interests rather than narrow interests or party interests. He will try to empower, strengthen his image of a person above partisan issues. So for him, it is a good position. From here, this position, Gül can go to a more passive position if he thinks that he cannot deal with this ruling bloc, or he can actually change his position for a much more challenging one. We will see.
Actually, some have interpreted this situation not as the strengthening of Gül, but rather as the weakening of Erdoğan. Would you agree with this kind of a statement?
Maybe it's too early to conclude, but what we can easily observe is that Erdoğan is very much afraid of a potential split within the AKP or supporters of AKP. You know, there is a deep-rooted fear. I believe that this fear is psychologically related to the fact that they know that they are doing something wrong, actually, in contrast to AKP's first years. So this fear, I believe, is clearly related to the fact that, you know, they are moving towards authoritarianism, and in this way, they also feel that significant sectors of society are getting alienated from them, including some segments of the ruling AKP, actually. So what does this mean? Potentially, they believe that a splinter group around Gül can create great discontent and disturbance within the party. So this potential is actually there. It can be used by some bold politicians. What does this mean? I cannot be sure whether Gül will try to fill this gap or not, but what can be sure about is that there is this significant potential source of power for any opposition group within or around AKP.
So you've actually touched upon this briefly, but I still want to make the point and ask you this. So just like we've been talking about in the past minutes, former President Gül suddenly is under the spotlight once again, after a long time, perhaps. So can we say that Gül is now emerging, or re-emerging rather, as an actor in Turkish politics? Or is it too early to think this way? Or is it likely at all? What do you think?
He's already an actor. In certain polls, his popularity is quite strong. And since we know, as we know, ruling party is very rich, they can also conduct certain polls, and they can also see remaining still, you know, they can easily observe that Gül is still popular. And you know, some people tend to attribute great strategical mind to Erdoğan and his team. I don't think so, because they easily reveal their panic. You know, Gül just made a statement, and he was willing to return to his, let's say, silence, but there emerged an incredible attack. And this can be taken as a negative advertisement, actually. You know, they were attacking on Gül. Even, you know, the way they attack on Gül might be leading some people to think that, you know, Gül is some sort of power that they are afraid of. So, you know, unwillingly or indirectly, they might have contributed to the popularity of Gül as a potential rival, actually. This is why I found their approach too panic-striven, actually.
And finally, let's talk a bit about the opposition parties. Do you think that the HDP, the pro-Kurdish HDP, and the main opposition, CHP, the Republican People's Party, do you think they're likely to get involved in this dispute, perhaps in later stages, if not now?
You know, the Nationalist Conservative Alliance, or Nationalist Conservative Front, played their card too early. There is a very simple calculation. They think that opposition groups cannot come together due to their, let's say, fears about, you know, coming together with the People's Democracy Party, HDP. and litmus test for opposition will be actually their flexibility, whether they will be democratic oriented or not in their approach to HDP. Because even a child can see that litmus test for 2019 presidential elections will be the votes of the Kurdish voters. So the ruling nationalist conservative bloc acts with a very simple calculation. They think that opposition cannot act together with HDP. Think from other perspective. If opposition, including Felicity Party, Saadet Partisi, Good Party, HDP, and Republican People's Party, if they can come around a promise for a new constitution, if they can envision a new Turkey around a new constitution in which there will be checks and balances, whether it is going to be parliamentarian or not, it will be democratic, basic rights and freedoms will be secured, so on and so forth. If they can create such an environment around the constitutional promise, their alliance can be surprisingly accepted by a significant portion of society. I really believe that this is a serious option. That's why ruling bloc played its card too early, and they still calculated opposition will not be able to overcome their Kurdish phobia or fears that if they come together with the Kurds, they would lose ground. But politics is about risk-taking. I really believe that it is possible for the opposition groups to come together around, a ground project of making a new constitution. And believe me, this project would be also quite attractive with rational people voting for ruling AKP, even for Nationalist Action Party. This is the real test, actually. I am also willing to see whether... the test is very, very simple. Will the opposition groups be able to turn into Democrats? If they achieve to be Democrats, they can win the elections. So this is the real test. I hope Turkey will benefit from this real test of building a democratic coalition. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor Taşkın, for joining us in our studio once again tonight and for your comments.
Thank you.
The Constitutional Court ruled on Thursday to release jailed journalists Mehmet Altan and Şahin Alpay. The local courts, however, have ordered that the journalists should remain under arrest.
The Constitutional Court ruled on Thursday that Mehmet Altan's and Şahin Alpay's right to personal freedom and security and their freedom of expression and press have been violated. Altan and Alpay are prominent journalists who have been in prison for more than a year. The Constitutional Court decided to send Alpay's file to the Istanbul 13th Heavy Penal Court and Altan's file to the 26th Heavy Penal Court. The two journalists' lawyers demanded their clients' release following the highest court's decision. However, the local courts ordered that the journalists should remain under arrest until the details of the Constitutional Court's ruling are published in the official Gazette. In a move that could be considered a reply to the local courts, the Constitutional Court's official Twitter account has stated that the fully detailed rulings are available on the top court's website. Altan and Alpay were jailed in the aftermath of the 2016 coup attempt. They have been accused of links to the terrorist groups and attempting to overthrow the government.
Pro-Kurdish HDP's imprisoned co-leader Selahattin Demirtas announced this week that he will not run as party leader in the upcoming Congress.
Selahattin Demirtas, the imprisoned co-leader of the People's Democratic Party (HDP), will not stand as a nominee for the party's leadership in the upcoming Congress scheduled for February. Demirtas sent a letter from the Edirne prison to the HDP headquarters via his lawyers, stating that he would not be standing again for the party leadership. I want it to be known that I will not be a candidate for co-leadership in the upcoming Congress, he wrote. Even though my official position within our party doesn't legally allow me even to be a member, I will never refrain from serving our precious people and HDP with the responsibility and enthusiasm of a co-leader, Demirtas said. Demirtas was arrested on November 4, 2016, along with 10 other HDP members as part of an investigation on terror allegations. The prosecutors are demanding up to 142 years in jail over charges of being a leader of a terrorist organization and inciting hatred and animosity. Demirtas was elected as the leader of the HDP in 2014, along with Figen Yüksekdağ, who had to step down from her co-leadership post after she was convicted in March 2017. Demirtas was elected as the leader of the HDP in 2014, along with Figen Yüksekdağ, who had to step down from her co-leadership post after she was convicted in March 2017. Currently, 8 lawmakers from the HDP are in jail. Meanwhile, Demirtas appeared before court today for the first time since his arrest. He is standing trial for charges of insulting the president after the comments he made regarding Recep Tayyip Erdoğan in 2015 at the Istanbul Atatürk airport. Following the judge's decision today, the trial was postponed to May 17th.
Now we'll take a look at the latest developments in the Syrian province of Idlib.
The battle for Idlib has intensified. On from the early hours of the new year, Assad's forces, backed by a wave of Russian airstrikes, began a major military campaign in northwest Syria. Idlib, which is the last Syrian province to be held by hardline jihadi insurgents, was included in the de-escalation effort to end violence across the country launched last year by Russia, Iran, and Turkey. The province has a population of 2 million, more than half of them internally displaced persons. Syrian troops, backed by Russian airstrikes, regained control of some positions that it had withdrawn from. The troops advanced on the strategic Abu al-Duhur airbase in eastern Idlib, where fighting still continues. However, it is reported that thousands of civilians have fled the area so far, prompting concerns of another humanitarian crisis. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu told the reporters on Tuesday that the Syrian army is striking moderate opposition forces in Idlib, and this is undermining efforts to reach a political solution to the war in Syria. Turkey accused Russia and Iran of jeopardizing the entire peace process with this offensive. Iran and Russia are guarantors of the Syrian regime. We are the guarantor of the moderate opposition. Iran and Russia should consider their responsibilities and halt the regime, Çavuşoğlu said. Russia's ambassador to Ankara, Alexei Yarkov, and Iranian ambassador Mohammad Ebrahim Taherian Fard were called in to express Turkey's discomfort about the attacks in Idlib. Meanwhile, the mystery over the source of the drone attacks on Russian air bases is coming to an end. Early in the week, Russian officials announced that the drone attacks were conducted by opposition groups located in the province of Idlib. Russia said it held Turkey accountable for the drone attack and asked the Turkish military to tighten control over armed groups in the Idlib de-escalation zone in Syria. On Thursday, Russian leader Vladimir Putin clarified the issue, mentioning that Russia knows the actors behind the attacks and Turkey is not one of them. Putin stated that there were some provocateurs, but they were not Turks. We know who they are, who paid for this provocation, and what the actual sum was. As for this kind of incidents, there is nothing good about them. These are provocations aimed at destroying previous agreements.
Turkish Cypriots went to the ballot box last week. The results of the election suggest that a coalition government may be formed.
The results of the parliamentary elections in the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus were announced on Tuesday evening. The results confirmed that a coalition government is in the cards, as no party has collected enough votes to emerge as the ruling party. The National Unity Party, UBP, got 35% of the votes, led by current Prime Minister Hüseyin Özgürgün. Supreme Election Committee head Narin Şefik stated that only 6 of the 8 parties running managed to get past the 5% threshold necessary to obtain representation in the parliament. The last general elections in the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus were held in January 2013. Since then, 3 coalition governments have taken office, led by 3 different prime ministers. After a motion calling for early elections was passed by the parliament in November, the general elections, which were originally planned for July 2018, were rescheduled to January 7th.
Now let's take a look at what's on in Istanbul next week.
Ezel, Ankara's biggest gift to the world of Turkish rap, will be on Babylon stage tonight. Having been introduced to reggae and rap at the age of 12, Ezel started writing his own lyrics at the age of 14. Ezel initially started writing in English, but later switched to Turkish. Unable to adapt at school, he spent his high school years dwelling on music in the underground scene of Ankara. At 18, he started playing with a reggae band called Afra Tafra. Peter Schumann, known for minimal grooving beats and a colorful variety of house, Detroit and minimal tunes, is playing tonight at Mama Istanbul. Screening heartwarming stories about dogs last year as part of the Tales of Tales, Dogs on Screen program, Perifilm is back with a new program that is a feline salute to one of the most intriguing creatures known to humans. Perifilm's Cat Got Your Tongue program shines light on cinema's recent cat stories, from France to Turkey and from Japan to the USA. The selection cherishes the magical and perplexing world of cats. Film screenings will continue until the 4th of February at the Pera Museum.
That's all from This Week in Turkey. Thanks for tuning in and hope to see you again next Friday at 9 p.m. Goodbye.